What decision-making mechanism do you have today that is different from the Catholics in the past that Catholics wrongfully used to execute skeptics like Giordano Bruno and Galileo? And if possible, no Bible verses.
I promise, no Bible verses, Gabe. All right. Well, here's the key. First of all, the church did not put folks to death. You have to understand that in the age of Christendom, we had Christian kings and Christian countries. And in that context, an attack against the church was seen as an attack against the state because the two were so closely allied, right? And so even in, for example, the Inquisitions and so forth, the church was asked by the state to tell the state, okay, who's the heretic and who isn't. But the church, even in the sort of quasi-liturgy that was developed to hand over the heretic to the state, the church always employed mercy. Now, of course, brother, back in those centuries, we understood, and by the way, we still do, that heresy is a more serious sin than murder, right? Murder kills a body and the soul of the one who's doing the murdering, but heresy kills who knows how many souls. And so these were very, very grave matters. Now, of course, the church has grown and now takes a very, very strong stand against any thought of executing malefactors for their rejection of the faith. That's just not, Gabe, I think you would agree with me, that just doesn't meet the spirit of the Sermon on the Mount, Cy Kellett.
No, it does not.
That's not, Pope Benedict XVI famously, he said that we have, in our evangelism, we should present the truth and make it attractive to where it draws people, not our machinations and our trying to manipulate people, and certainly, God forbid, trying to coerce people. The Catholic Church has made so clear in a wonderful document called Nostra Aetate from Vatican Council II that any, and not just that, but also Dignitatis Humanae from that same council, that any thought of and especially Dignitatis Humanae, any thought of coercing someone to accept the faith is absolutely anathema to the Catholic Church. It's contrary to the gospel. And in fact, conversions, and I'll tell you this, Gabe, in the history of the church, that is the one thing that the church, apart from when we talk about baptism being valid or not, of course, you have to have valid form and matter, Gabe. That means the right words and the right stuff. You have to use water, right? Another thing that invalidates baptism is coercion. Even back in the Middle Ages, the church understood. It's not like we just came to this revelation at Vatican II. The church has always understood it, that coercion invalidates a profession of faith and even can invalidate baptism, which is extraordinarily important. And so now you're asking specifically about what mechanism do we have now to know that we're right and back then they were wrong? Well, it depends what you're talking about. If you're talking about using coercive methods, we have the magisterium of the church. That is the mechanism, and I just mentioned some examples of that tells us that coercion is contrary to the gospel. It is a sin, and it will lead the person to hell who's doing the coercing. That's how serious that is, because it's contrary to the dignity of the human person, as I mentioned, the document Dignitatis Humanae from Vatican Council II, okay? But now, if you're talking about things like, let's say, geocentrism, right, and the fight, because you brought up Bruno and such, and scientists.
Well, if I may, he also brought up Galileo. I just want to point out, nobody killed Galileo.
Yeah, nobody.
He died of old age.
That's right. Galileo was under house arrest. He was treated awful nicely. But the point is, though, we do not have a mechanism in the Catholic Church to declare. In other words, the Catholic Church has not declared geocentrism is wrong, thus saith God. No, the Church has not said that. What we do as Catholics is we proceed along the lines of what scientists see. We refer questions like geocentrism to scientists. and scientists give us the answers. Now, over time, over centuries, you now see, the parallel acts and so forth. It's pretty much been discovered now. We pretty much know that the Earth is round. I'm not talking about geocentrism, but the Earth is round and such. And in a similar way, that the Earth is not the center of the universe. In fact, we know, and as you know, brother, that both Galileo, Copernicus, and the geocentrists, they were all wrong, because neither the sun or the earth is actually the center of the universe, because they're all in motion, right, Cy Kellett?
As far as I know, yes.
The sun is not. But see, the point is, though, that these are matters of science. And whenever you read, like if you were to go to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, Gabe, and read about creation, what you find is that the creation is spoken to only in the context of how, like the first 3 chapters of Genesis, reveal certain aspects of God's plan of salvation for our salvation. That, for example, God is the creator. He creates all things. We have 2 original parents, says section 390 of the Catechism, and so forth. So the church will refer to Genesis and creation, but only in those contexts of there's a created order revealing the orderer who is Almighty God. There's the revelation of the fall of man and the prophecy concerning his salvation that's fulfilled in the New Testament. That's where the church trains her guns, not on the scientific, what we would consider actually minutia compared to the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this Catholic Answer, be sure to like, subscribe, and check out our live streams Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific. Or find the episode after on YouTube, your favorite podcast platform, or our Catholic Answers app.